Fuminori had responded with blunt, unequivocal denial, and it acted as though he hadn't the slightest idea why Omi would have gone to his house. Perhaps that was only natural, as he was unaware that Omi and Kouji had witnessed him produce Yoda tears. In the first place, did Omi actually make it to Fuminori's house? She had been riding a wave of emotion when she left, and might very well have calmed down and changed her mind halfway there. Or perhaps she ran into trouble on the way? Kouji concluded, or, more accurately, convinced himself, that one of these possibilities was the truth, subconsciously denying the one remaining possibility. In other words, the possibility that Fuminori was lying, that he had met Omi, and was involved in her disappearance. When questioned by the police, Kouji only told the truth about Omi's destination up to the district and train station, maintaining that he had no idea where she'd planned to go after that. He wanted to cooperate with the search, of course, but knew that Omi couldn't have made it to Fuminori's house. Fuminori said so himself, didn't he? In that case, he told the police everything they needed to know. Not wanting to get the still fragile Fuminori involved, he forced himself to accept this flimsy logic. But now, the conflict has built up inside Kouji without his notice, and only formless suspicion towards Fuminori cycles through his mind. Kouji is deep in thought, paying no attention to his surroundings. But perhaps this is what allows him to catch sight of his friend's pack through the crowd of milling students.
Fuminori.
At first, Kouji assumes that he's headed to the lecture hall, but it soon appears that he is instead going home. Strange. There should have been required classes for medical students in the afternoon. Though he is initially surprised, Kouji's hesitation lasts for only a second. Kouji follows his friend, taking care to stay far enough behind that he won't be noticed. Fuminori wasn't going home, as became obvious when he boarded a train heading in the opposite direction. Kouji's next guess was that he was going to see his doctor at the T University Hospital, but Fuminori rode straight through the closest station.
Where's he going?
At first, Kouji felt awfully foolish, rebuking himself for tailing his friend like this, but his conscience fell silent as Fuminori's actions became more mysterious. The stranger it gets, the closer Kouji feels to discovering the truth behind Fuminori's sudden transformation. Any knowledge would be welcome, no matter how slight. Even Kouji is beginning to think that there must be something more behind Fuminori's change than the accident alone. He wants a more satisfying answer, one that will help him decide whether or not Fuminori can be trusted. Fuminori gets off at a small station in a nondescript suburban area. Kouji follows, trying not to lose sight of him amidst the other disembarking passengers. The station has neither a traffic circle nor a shopping street in front of it. The area is quite desolate, possessing only a small bookstore, convenience store, and market. It's easy for Kouji to keep Fuminori in sight. Fuminori seems to know these streets, clearly intent on a single goal as he hurries through the residential neighborhood. Carved out of the hills, the area has many slopes, and here and there remain steep inclines and wooded areas that escape dissimulation. Kouji, who moved to Tokyo to attend school, is amazed that such a quiet place exists less than an hour out of the city. Before long, Fuminori reaches a house. Without ringing the bell or even knocking on the door, he vanishes inside as though sucked into a vacuum, leaving Kouji to wonder how Fuminori can treat the house as his own. After waiting to see if Fuminori will come back out, Kouji approaches the gate and checks the nameplate.
Oh, guy.
Kouji has never heard of anyone by that name among Fuminori's acquaintances. Next, his attention is drawn to the thick wad of leaflets sticking out of the mail slot, which, coupled with the general dilapidated feel of the place, suggests that it has been long since abandoned. A small playground about 2 blocks away provides an adequate vantage point from which to watch the front of the Ogai home. Fortunately, it does not appear to be the sort of house that has a rear exit. Chiding himself for not stocking up on cigarettes, Kouji settles down on a bench to begin his stakeout. 1 hour passes, and then another, but there remains no sign of movement around the Ogai residence as twilight settles on the neighborhood. After Kouji's 1 pack of cigarettes runs out, the stakeout becomes a battle against a mounting impatience. He kills time by redialing Omi on his cell and sending her short text messages, but his efforts are as futile as he knew they would be. When the sky begins to turn deep blue and the streetlights come on, Fuminori finally emerges from the house and heads back towards the station with the same hurried stance. After some consideration, Kouji decides that right now, investigating the house is more important than tailing Fuminori. He rings the doorbell just to make sure. Receiving the expected silence in response, he checks to make sure no one is watching and turns the doorknob. The door is not locked. The moment he enters the house, thick, stale air fills Kouji's nostrils. Redolent of mold and dust, it's the unmistakable smell of a house that has long lain untouched. There's also the faint hint of something indescribable in the air, something reminiscent of damp sewers and fetid cisterns. Flipping the light switch does nothing. The power must be dead or perhaps cut off. Kouji uses his oil lighter to illuminate the immediate area. In the thick dust covering the floor, he can clearly see several brand new trails of footprints that could only have been made by shoes. They must be Fuminori's. Showing an equal lack of reservation, Kouji also enters with his shoes on. The lighter's flickering flame pushes back the deathly silence and gloom of the house. Kouji is surprised to see evidence of life remaining. Everything from furniture to tableware and appliances is intact. Nothing seems to be missing. The thickness of the dust suggests that the house has been empty for several months, which means that the owner must have left with little more than the clothes on his back. Could he have gone on a long vacation? The calendar on the den is still turned to April. Empty and silent, yet still exhibiting signs of the life that once lived there. The house reminds Kouji of a passenger ship resting at the bottom of the sea. In the graveyard-like quiet, a sinister thought suddenly runs through his head. No one is living here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the owner left. Maybe he was killed and his rotting corpse is right under his feet. Kouji finds himself wanting a stronger light. A mag light in his hand would make him feel a lot better. Following what appear to be Fuminori's footprints, Kouji ascends to the 2nd floor, where he begins to catch the scent of paper in the stale air. It's the smell of old books, instantly familiar to anyone who's worked in an antique bookstore or library. The 2nd floor turns out to be a study, its towering shelves packed with a vast number of books that Kouji fears for the stability of the floor. As a medical student himself, he's able to discern at a glance that this study belongs to a medical professional, and a high-level one at that. And judging by the content of the books, a smorgasbord of technological volumes far beyond a simple student, the owner must be more interested in research than clinical medicine. It appears that Fuminori spent most of his time here, the scattered dust making it clear that he was searching for something. He seems to have focused on going through the desk and file cabinet, as the contents of the drawers are in obvious disarray. A small pile of books on a side table catches his eye. Being next to the desk, they must have been most frequently read. What sort of books they are could shed some light on the person who lived here. Kouji frowns as he examines the 3 books. The old, leather-bound Western tomes are not scientific texts, but rather the kind of books you would expect to see in a glass case at a rare bookstore. The titles are equally mysterious. Traité des Chiffres appears to be about semiotics, but Ars Magna et Ultima is some kind of treatise on divination. And then there's the Voynich manuscript, which appears to be a sort of picture book. When he pages through it, however, he finds line after line of utterly incomprehensible characters. Maybe it's some kind of cipher. Whatever they are, they clearly have nothing to do with medicine, refuting Kouji's earlier guess that Mr. Ogai was a doctor. Looking down, Kouji suddenly notices the glint of something black and metallic underneath the chair. A pocket-sized maglite, Quite out of place among all those dusty books. Fuminori must have brought it in. With slight relief, Kouji exchanges his lighter for the maglite. Its tiny body emits a powerful white beam that casts away the darkness. His courage restored, he decides to explore the rest of the house. Kouji notices something strange. Something that was not visible in the lighter's weak flame. The slime. Especially thick on the doorknobs and store banisters. These are no mere handprints. Dark, slimy stains are everywhere, like someone had their hands wrapped in greasy cloth. Looking closer, he sees what appears to be places where slime was splashed low on the walls and near the floor. It's almost as if a wet mop was run violently across the floor. Are those more remnants of Ogai's life? No. These marks are much too strange. Kouji begins to feel sick as he finds himself imagining the denizens of this place wandering around with filthy water dripping from its entire body. Finding the bedroom next to the study, Kouji checks the closet on a hunch. He finds 2 empty suitcases. Not what one would leave behind when going on a long vacation. A sudden chill runs through him. So whoever was living here is still somewhere inside the house. Suppressing the urge to flee, Kouji goes back downstairs to check the first floor. If he finds a corpse, he'll have to call the police right away. He can get away with trespassing if he reports it first, but if they find the body later, it'll be awfully hard to explain his fingerprints all over the house. The magnite reveals the den to be covered in even more slime than the rest of the house. The sofa looks as if it was dredged from the bottom of a swamp. In the kitchen, Kouji takes one look at the sink and decides not to get any closer. He doesn't want any more fuel for his imagination. He reaches the door to the bathroom. A common scene from TV dramas flashes through his head. A suicide, with slit wrists floating in the bathtub filled with water. And wasn't there a movie where a hitman butchers his victim's body in a bathroom? Kouji steels himself and opens the door slowly, shining his light into the ceramic bathtub that appears from the darkness like a white ghost. Dried flesh and blood, clinging to curved rib bones, has turned the inside of the tub black. Kouji pokes one hand against the wall to steady himself as his legs threaten to buckle. Something is wrong. He realizes as he desperately tries to get his thoughts in order. Bones. But they're too small, and there are too many of them. They aren't human. After taking several deep breaths to calm himself, Kouji enters the bathroom and examines the tub. The tub is half filled with small bones piled on top of each other like fallen leaves. Too small to be human, they appear to be from small animals like dogs, cats, mice, and sparrows. Even so, the quantity is mind-boggling. How many corpses would it take to produce this many bones? The bones have all been separated from each other, and it doesn't appear that the bodies were just thrown into the tub and left to rot. This is made clear by the many groove-like impressions left on each bone. Marks left by teeth biting through flesh. Kouji's sanity won't let him consider the possibility that a human could have done this. The owner of this house must have been keeping some sort of carnivorous animal as a pet, giving it the bones of small animals to eat, and disposing of the remains in the bathtub. But why not dispose of the leftovers properly? It could have just been thrown out in the garbage. Or was there something keeping him from leaving the house? The momentary relief Kouji felt when he realized that the bones weren't human is once again under attack by the ever-deepening mystery permeating this house. Just what the hell was Fuminori doing here?
What are you doing, Kouji?
Kouji whirls around, his penlight revealing Fuminori's expressionless face.
You're trespassing, Kouji. So,
are you?
Kouji replies, barely managing to speak over the pounding of his heart. Fuminori pushes past Kouji and looks nonchalantly into the bathtub, as though there's nothing strange about a tub filled with bones.
I know the owner of this house. I was just asked to find something.
You know them? Since when? Who are they?
Kouji doesn't want to believe that the old, friendly Fuminori could have had contact with the denizens of this house.
I'll introduce you one of these days.
He says, turning to leave without even looking at Kouji.
I owe them my life, after all.
Hey! Fuminori!
With his heart finally beating normally again, Kouji runs after Fuminori.
Wait, are they the reason you've been acting so strange all of a...
Standing in the entrance, Fuminori glares coldly at Kouji over his shoulder. The utter lack of emotion in his eyes gives Kouji pause.
You followed me, didn't you, Kouji?
With no possible excuse, Kouji can only swallow under Fuminori's piercing stare.
That's a nuisance. I'll ask you not to do it again.
Fine.
Fuminori walks away without another word, leaving Kouji alone in the entrance. Until this moment, there was still a part of Kouji that wanted to consider Sakisaka Fuminori a close friend. Now, however, there is only ice-cold terror. Does the Fuminori he knew no longer exist? Was the person who just stared Kouji down an imposter, wearing Fuminori's skin? Kouji has begun to believe that it might be so.
What a nuisance. Why does he insist on interfering? If he only spoke with me to exchange pleasantries, even I could bear it. But for him to stick his neck into my business just to satisfy his curiosity, he's clearly violating my privacy. Kouji is a perfect example of someone who thinks that it's always good to take an interest in other people's affairs. He probably thinks that he's showing concern for me by prying into my personal life. He couldn't be more annoying. If he keeps interfering, I might have to find some way to deal with him. Like Saya said, I have to keep my search for Professor Ogai as secret as possible. Kouji could ruin everything. Saya said that there would be nothing to help with the search, but I unexpectedly found many things of value in the professor's house. I didn't have time to fully examine the house today. At this rate, it'll probably take several days to go through the study alone. I'll have to go to and from the house a lot, but now Kouji knows where it is. Will he keep making things difficult?
Excuse me, Sakisaka-kun.
A hair-raising voice calls as I'm about to enter my gate. Suppressing a shudder, I put on a fake smile and turn to face the writhing mass of rotting flesh that is staring at me with bulging eyes.
Good evening, Sakisaka-san. Are you just getting home?
Yes, I am. Ah, yes. This is my next-door neighbor, Suzumi. A middle-aged painter, I think, who spends all day at home while his wife works. I haven't had much interaction with him, so why is he suddenly talking to me today?
Have you got any news? No.
Yes, thank you for your help.
No, it must be very difficult, but you're still alive. You have to work hard to move on with your life.
Yes. What is this? Did he stop me just to deliver a lecture?
With such a big house, it must be hard to take care of everything by yourself.
Yes, I suppose I am having trouble.
Why not at least hire a caretaker? Didn't your father have one?
Yes, but I'm still a student, and my funds are limited. such an expense would be. The flesh beast undulates foully, as though it still has something to say. Just looking at it is driving me close to the edge.
Even so, don't you think you could at least tend to your own yard? I'd be happy to help.
No, thank you. I'll manage on my own. Now I get it. He's worried that the unsightliness of my house might ruin the beauty of his own. Damn snob. Flashing a token smile, I retreat into the safety of my gate. I can feel Suzumi's eyes boring into my back all the way to the front door. Why won't everyone stay out of my life? I want to find a place free of other people. A place where I can live together with Saya.
Suzumi Yosuke sighs in annoyance as he watches the neighbor boy retreat into his house.
What's with his attitude? Even when talking, kept his eyes averted, as though he was looking at something filthy. Has the eldest son of the Sakisaka family always been such an unpleasant young man? No, of course not. When his parents were still alive, he had been a normal youth, slightly introverted, yet sensitive. The unfamiliarity of living alone must be placing stress upon him. If this continues, he might develop mental problems. Or is it too late already?
Yosuke wonders as he wearily gazes over the Sakisaka yard. Even during dinner, Yosuke can't shake the neighboring house from his mind.
What's wrong, honey? You look like something's bothering you.
Yeah. I saw the young man from next door today.
Next door? You mean Fuminori, Oni-chan?
Yeah. I spoke to him about that yard.
I know. I wish he'd at least do something about that smell.
The stink coming from the Sakisaka house grew worse each day. The Suzumi family was at its wits' end.
Could there be a dead cat or something in these bushes? Surely he must notice the smell coming from his own yard.
He couldn't be leaving raw garbage out there, could he?
No, surely not.
No, I wouldn't put it past him now. Who knows what he's doing in there all day with the storm shutters closed? What kind of life is he leading?
Did Oni-chan go crazy?
Now, Hiromi, you mustn't say things like that.
Honestly, the way things are going, I'm starting to wonder if he's developed paranoia or something.
Will he be all right?
Unless he admits it and gets himself to a doctor soon. Who knows?
The seconds crawl by, each tick of the clock compounding my agony. When I returned from the Ogai house, I was greeted by a silent, empty home. Saya had vanished without leaving any clue as to her whereabouts. It isn't rare for her to go for walks at night. I've often gone with her. However, such outings always take place in the middle of the night when no one is around, and never last for more than 2 hours. Right now, it's 5 in the morning. Soon the sky will begin to show the first light of dawn. Even if she left right before I returned, she's still been gone for almost half a day. Unable to sleep, I can only wait in anguish. I tried to distract myself by painting more of the other rooms, but I couldn't concentrate on the work. If I had known this would happen, I would have left the Ogai house sooner. I wish I hadn't wasted time on Kouji. If Saya doesn't return, the thought fills me with such panic that I want to tear my hair out. After its long absence, the terror of true loneliness is slowly crushing me. At last, the cowbell chimes and Saya's long-awaited
I'm home!
rings out from the bottom of the stairs. As I jump out of my bed in relief, All of the mental stress that has built up through the night is released in a wave that threatens to sweep me off my feet.
So tired.
Saya says as she climbs the stairs.
I knew going all the way there and back would be hard.
Saya, where have you... My question trails off as I notice the thick bundles of paper that she's carrying under her arms. What are those?
Your medical charts and surgery records. I went back to the hospital today.
Saya all but drops her bundles on the floor, sending paper flying everywhere. Pulling her favorite cushion over, she collapses into it and stretches luxuriously. You walked all the way back from T University in the middle of the night?
Sorry,
she says, skillfully gathering the scattered papers together one by one.
I meant to come back sooner, but there were so many files to go through. So I decided to just bring everything. It was so heavy.
Maybe I'm just tired, but I'm not understanding a word Saya's saying. Wait, what are you planning to do with all of this?
What do you mean? I'm going to study them, of course.
She replies, holding one MRI photograph after another up to the light.
I'll have plenty of time to go over them here.
At first, I think she's playing around, but the occasional mutters of,
better check this one. Oh, I see.
And the like as she separates photos into the growing pile next to her makes me think this might not be a joke after all. Can you understand this stuff?
I learned a lot from Dad. I see. So that's how it is. No wonder it can't be fixed.
It can't be fixed?
By a human doctor, that is.
Let's Start Project.